Hotep Senuela Senut Itiren Ishaka Nugu Kemet. How you doing, brothers and sisters? Let me put some background noise. Not noise, but sound, actually. Some background sound. Just a few clicks away. I'm just about to make sure that you can hear me loud and clear. And for those who are already there, don't hesitate to tell me that you can hear me loud and clear. I've shared the invite link for those who want to. Is it frozen? Is my screen frozen? Okay, there it is. Well, it was frozen on my end. So I've shared the invite link, but lately people are afraid to show their face as if we're doing something illegal. So people can stick it with the chat. People can people can stick with the chat. Okay. Microphone 1 2. Microphone 1 2. Microphone check. Well, the sound is lovely. Feel free, brothers and sisters. The title is a bit long. You're free to address any topic you like. But I'm wondering, just for the record, have some of you ever asked your pastor, your rabbi, your imam about records regarding the patriarchs that you believe existed? Believing is not knowing. We have Neter Amaru. No, Amu, my bad. Peace to you, brother. Is it the. No, it's not the same username. If you don't mind saying where you are located, if you're in America, at least the state, or if you want the city. I wish we had some people from England, from Canada. I wish we had some people from England, from Canada. Some people from Africa as well. But our people are trapped into those belief systems. They're also convinced with no records whatsoever. Some people will tell you that they are fighting white supremacy, and they have anti-black and anti-African teachings. Nothing much has changed over the years, except that slowly but surely a few people wake up and try to go back home, try to go back to the traditional African ways of life, culture. But then again, some people claim they're not Africans. Some people claim that they are indigenous to the land of America. So it's complicated. We have so many issues. But I'm glad still because there was progress, even though it is quite slow. So what's on your mind, brothers and sisters? Let me know. I saw that a known rapper's baby mother was killed over a dispute regarding bowling. Now we have Aaronessa. Is that a feminine form of Aaron? And that person is from Boston, Massachusetts. Is that a female name? Are you Hispanic? I mean, do you speak Spanish? I don't know why. I might be wrong, but that name makes me think that might be Hispanic somehow, some way. But then again, feel free with your comments and questions. Because I don't mind flowing, but I will not flow for too long if there's no participation. Let's have some interaction. Yes, indeed, it's a female name. All right. Well, feel free. Feel free if you have any questions or comments. People can talk about what they want. I prefer to talk about the Medu Neter, but I appreciate to teach it more than I like to talk about it. That's one of my main thing, and it's been the same. It's been like this for years, actually. As a matter of fact, if we have enough people interested, we could do another group class. We have the one on Friday, which is going well so far, and we could have some other time slots. There's a few time slots that could be possible, but we just need enough people interested. Just 5 people would do, 10 preferably, but 5 people would do. I'll do it for the French speakers as well, but it's just not enough people. I have some people who take the class individually, but now it's actually better to have some small groups, really. Now we have Mexicans are Hebrew Israelites who wrote peace to you, brother. I appreciate your work. Well, thanks. I don't really get Hebrew Israelites that congratulate me, and I was just wondering if people ask their rabbis and pastors and imam if there's any records for the patriarchs. Now, Aronis Hashavas wrote, I would love to attend the class. Well, what you can do is just send an email to me. This way, when I have enough people, then I will let you know, and then we will see about the time slot. Some of you know anybody who would like to learn the Medu Neter, and let them know. I'm looking for a group, like I said, at least 5 people. Because out of the 5, there will eventually be 1 or 2 who will not continue. So, Aronessa Shavers wrote, is there any way to decipher the glyphs or anyone who know? Well, there's plenty of people who know how to read the glyphs. The main issue might be with the word deciphering. When we have that word, it seems like we're dealing with something so mysterious, so secret. But it's been 200 years since Champollion was lucky to have his hands on the Rosetta Stone. I don't understand why it doesn't go down. It's best to copy and paste the email address. This way there will not be any typo. Okay. And if some French speakers are interested as well, let me know. Because I've had some interest, but there's not enough yet. Not enough people yet. So back to the question here. It's been about 200 years. It might be exactly around November. I forgot the month. 200 years that Champollion was lucky to have his hands on the Rosetta Stone. And on that Rosetta Stone, you have the same text written in three scripts and two languages. We have the classical Medu Neter or hieroglyphic, then we have the demotic, and then we have the Greek. So that was instrumental for Champollion to quote unquote decipher the hieroglyphs, even though Champollion is French. You had the British Thomas Young who have been working on it, and he figured out some sounds. And before that, actually, 8 centuries before Champollion, 800 years before Champollion, there was a Muslim guy, but I forgot where he was from. And he actually figured out some sounds. And for the record, I have already shared a video, or let's say an artifact, located in the Louvre Museum, where we have the name Alexander written in Medu Neter, or hieroglyphic, as the Greeks called it. And this artifact is dated 300 BC, 300 years before the lifetime of Yeshua. Which means that since the Rosetta Stone was found in 1799, 2,000 years before Champollion, we have some writings with the Medu Neter that spells the name Alexander. That's a proof in itself that the Medu Neter has been deciphered. And remember, when the Greeks were in Kemet, the Medu Neter was still spoken. It was still used as a language, and it's important. So the Greeks could hear the Medu Neter, and they could read the Medu Neter. Now they had trouble pronouncing it, just like some French speakers would eventually have trouble pronouncing some English sounds, like the, for example. It's very common and cliche that French people pronounce it the, because the sound doesn't exist in French. So we have some variations when it comes to the pronunciation. For example, the word Hyksos that many of you might have heard. Hyksos is Greek, and it is their way of pronouncing the Medu Neter Hekachasut, which can be translated as foreign ruler. Let me go through the comments. We have Spiritual Warrior and Healer who wrote, "Hi, your title says belief system. I don't think ancient Nubians had a belief system." Yes, but I wasn't just talking about ancient Nubians. Today, the majority of black people are into belief system. And believing is not knowing, but I guess sometimes people need to believe in something. When it gets a bit complicated is when people present their belief as it's a fact. Just like when people present their opinion like it's an absolute fact. A lot of people fail to realize that when we are dealing with ancient history, there's plenty of records, not just in Kemet, but in many other areas and many other civilizations. But the people who are into the Abrahamic belief system in particular, they fail to realize that if you search for records of Jesus Christ during his lifetime, you will probably come across many artifacts who will tell you that because it was so long ago, there were very, very little records about individuals. So they would tell you that there's no record for Julius Caesar during his lifetime. And they will also mention other people's names. They will even mention Pontius Pilate, even though we have the Pilate inscription. Or they would say things like, there's more attestation for the life of Jesus Christ than Julius Caesar. You know, one might argue that there's more more mention of Santa Claus than of Julius Caesar, but we'll have to do the count and find out. Cinderella is a very known story. It's translated in many languages. Just because it is mentioned so many times doesn't mean that it makes it factual. But anyway, I'll leave it there. Now keep the comments and the questions going. I'm just going down the chat, but I don't understand why I cannot go down all the way. Um, Strange. Okay, was a window on my end. So Aaron Aaronessa. Let me wait a second because my screen is frozen. I don't know why it does that. This is probably the third time since I started the live stream. I don't even know if you can hear me. Let me check. Okay, the screen is no longer frozen. Some people from Africa as well. I see what it looked like. Yes, it is frozen actually on the live stream as well. Okay, now for those who just arrived, I've shared the invite link to whoever would like to get on the panel directly, but you will need to show your face. We're not doing anything illegal, and it's 2022, so we're gonna take advantage of this new technology. But if you don't want to show your face, then you can just ask your questions in the chat and make your comments as well in the same place. So, and for those who don't feel like it's a burden, like it's a load, then hit that like button. Because for some people, it's too much ask. So, Aronessa wrote, I heard the Greek glyphs were actually African also. Okay, by Greek glyph, you probably mean the Greek script. Now, I wouldn't say it's African. Who said that? You see, the thing is that we have many people who say this and that is African. Many people say the African origin of this, the African origin of that. But when it comes to the Greeks, we have their depictions. Now, some people are misled, not to say fooled, by some painting, usually on pots or vases. And we have indeed individuals painted black, amongst other individuals painted white. If there's a museum with significant artifacts from Greece, then you might have seen that. But I have filmed that in the past. So the majority of the individuals painted are clearly white, not just in terms of the color, but also the phenotype. We can tell by the hair, by the physical appearance, by the nose, and so on. But when we have individuals painted black, they have exactly the same phenotype, only the color changes. So we have some people with the mentality of all black everything. There's a website that I went through during a live stream, and it's just a disaster, a real disaster. So now I'm glad you put that in spiritual warrior and soldier. Now, spiritual warrior and soldier wrote the Greeks' cartouches were left empty. Now, I know who has been claiming that, and I'm going to be diplomatic and not say the name, but somebody might bring up the name in the chat. That same person actually showed a glyph from Kemet that looks like a cross, but it's two reed leaf on top of another. No, well, pieces of reed, and the way a papyrus is made, you take the reed plant and you cut it, you slice it, and then you put one vertically and one horizontally, and you keep going. And that's how you will have a sheet. And they let it dry, and here you have your papyrus. So that glyph is just one like this and one like that. Now, the same person claimed that this is what they used to come up with the cross. So that person was saying that because the priest did not respect the Greek, they left the cartouche empty. But can you believe that the Greeks were so silly that they did not notice that nothing was written inside of the Shenu? Now, when I went to Kemet, the tour guide explained that you have the writing on the wall prepared, and the king has to go to some rituals before he can be officially considered a king. You see? So when you see empty cartouches, it's just that the necessary wasn't done yet. And I think the king also needs to be present, to go to a particular temple before they write the name. And besides, that doesn't happen too many times. We have the name Cleopatra inside of cartouche. We have the name Alexander inside of cartouche. We have the name Ptolemy inside of cartouche. So there's some things that people have been claiming, and it's just not accurate, And I'm not trying to start no beef or drama. I'm just saying it and that's it. So people can take it or leave it, Because usually someone says something and people repeat it, but people don't really check. So let me continue and keep the comments and the questions going, brothers and sisters. And once again, for those who are not afraid or who are okay with showing their face, then I have shared the invite link. It's pinned. It's at the top of the chat. So whoever wants to get on the panel, I don't want to take people who don't show their faces anymore. Just for the record, I'm going to share the invite link again. And then I will continue with the comments. Crazy that in 2022, anyway, people do what they want. So then we have Aronessa, who wrote, yes, they are under the Leviathan sleep under this current system. Then we have Bag Fries. That's an exotic name. He wrote, what's up, bro? Another brother spitting game. And then he asked, have you been to Kemet? I had the opportunity to go, and that was actually 10 years ago. It was nice. I was just disappointed because we didn't have much time on the different sites, the temples and so on. But as some of you may already know, there is this new museum who will be the largest museum in the world, at least the largest archaeological museum in the world. It is about 99% complete. It would have been completed if it wasn't for the COVID-19. And it will probably open this year, maybe towards whatever month it was that Carver discovered the tomb of Tutankhamun, because it's going to be the 200th anniversary, 200 years since the tomb of Tutankhamun was found. So earlier I mentioned November maybe for Champollion, but now I recall that November, if I'm not mistaken, people can check anyway. It's probably the Carver discovery. Champollion, I don't know, maybe it was a bit earlier. Now, all this to say that when the new museum will be open, up and running, then I feel like I have to get there. For the first time, people will be able to see the full Tutankhamun's collection. And there will be many other artifacts that were never seen before. Now, Aronessa wrote, do you think religion is bewitching the people, or that they are using religion to bewitch and keeping the masses dumbed down as well as through other institutions? Religion is a belief that is usually passed on by the parents. Sometimes it is prevalent in an environment. In France, you have many black people who come from Islamized country, but you have some who are not from an Islamic background, but they grew up in an area where there was so many Muslims, so they just follow the trend. And usually, as we grow up, we hear about the three quote-unquote major Abrahamic belief systems. So there's no mention of some history in past when it comes to Africa besides slavery. So people feel like, they have to go in that route of Easterners and so on. So it's a belief that's usually passed down from parents to children. I don't think anybody will deny that the majority of the people who are into a belief system, that is because either their parents or uncles or aunties or fellow family members, their relatives were into that belief system, Of course, some people do convert, but the majority, I don't think many people will dispute that people are into a religion mainly because their family were into it. So they grew up in that environment. Mexicans are Hebrew Israelites. That's the username, not my statement. You are familiar with the Negro depictions of Negro Israelite slaves on the Assyrian Black Obelisk? No, I'm not familiar, but can you share it with us? I'm curious. I really doubt that. Okay, you're probably talking about this couple of dudes with the so-called Bantu nuts or kinky hair nuts, and some people, like a person that has transited, that's made this transition, actually said, well, this is the oldest depiction of Jews. The problem is that these so-called Bantu nuts or kinky nuts, it doesn't represent kinky hair at all. And I have demonstrated that many times. So if you're talking about that, yes, I have seen it. I'm not used to that. We have Spiritual Warrior who wrote, thank you for answering the question. There's so many people ask me questions in the comments of the videos, not the chat. After I upload the video, and many people ask me to do stuff, they don't even say hello. They don't even greet. They don't say please. They don't say thanks. Sometimes I still answer and they don't say thanks. I've had people asking me if I can do a slide, a presentation about something, and I'm like, okay. Now, Backfries asks you should tap in with Sanetta. I called his show once because I heard Lord Abba, who was at it, talking about black Arabs, black Moors, and all that. So I called him to tell him that that black Arab stuff has been refuted, and he said, well, the way he gets down is if there's any claim, he needs to be in writing. And I told him I've done that and write it already. It's on my website. I wasn't expecting him to check it out, but I asked him if he could name a Moor that either called himself a Moor or that was called a Moor by another person. I mean, the question was something to that effect. I've uploaded the exchange we had. So he gave me two names. One of them was Bo Abdil, and the other one I forgot, Tashufin or something like that. And the funny thing is that in the Louvre Museum, they have depiction of the father or the grandfather of that person he was talking about. And if you look at the depiction, it looks like the typical depiction of Zeus. So far from a black person. So if you're not aware, brothers and sisters, that Moorish black Moor stuff is really almost a hoax. The people who invaded Spain and parts of Europe, it was not just black people, it was Muslims. And amongst those Muslims, you had black people. Just like with the United States Army, nobody will say black people invaded Iraq or Afghanistan. It's the U.S. Army, and in the U.S. Army, you happen to have black people. But that Moorish stuff has faded, just like metaphysics has faded as well. But at one point, that Moorish stuff was big. Actually, so many people went to jail claiming that sovereignty, getting into people's houses and claiming sovereignty and all that, and they ended up in jail with the quickness. So, and they were coming up with these like these cars that will let you show that you are a, how do they call it, sovereign citizen, and many different kind of hoax and scams basically. So when so many people went to jail, the movement, it's not a good look. So and besides, so many people know now that the so-called seventh circle Quran is plagiarism of the Ukrainian Gospel of Jesus Christ in another book as well. So just like Kwanzaa is plagiarism of the Jewish holiday Hanukkah. Now regarding Sanera, I mean, he's doing his thing. He has a very large platform, and that's good for him. But about anybody can get on there, and you will hear people stating stuff, and then the next day you have someone stating the opposite. And I don't understand how you can be down with all those belief systems. If we're supposed to progress as a people, I don't understand how we can have Hebrew Israelites that say that they celebrate the death of Africans. They have actually stated that they celebrate the death of Africans. That's just one example. So I'm not really comfortable with that. So I called once to set the record straight when someone was still pushing that black Arab stuff, because for those who don't know, the PhD in Islamic study who wrote a book about this theory of black Arabs, we kind of went back and forth years back, and he challenged me to a debate publicly I accepted the challenge. We spoke about it, and then he backed down because he realized he was going to get smashed. So there's an article, a very detailed article explaining why the Arabs of the 7th century, or more particularly Muhammad ibn Abdullah, the Prophet of Islam, was not black because he was described as white according to the Sunnah, according to the Islamic sources, and that is the Sahih Hadith. So Hadith, the narration or tradition, but we're talking about Sahih Hadith, not Hadith that comes out of space. Now, there was a guy in England who wasn't really posted for a few months, and one of his video came to my attention, and from what I've seen when I scroll through it, and from the title, he wanted to refute or basically say that someone was wrong when he talked about a white prophet Muhammad. But I happened to see that video, and that guy just quoted Sahih Hadith. And when I scrolled, I was lucky to come across that quote where Muhammad is described as brown. Now, my article is on my website, and I think also it appears in the description of this video, just like the majority of the videos that I've uploaded for the last few months or the last few years. So anybody can go and check that very detailed article that says, the title in the description says color of Prophet Muhammad according to Islamic sources. It should say something like that. That hadith where Muhammad is described as brown is an exception, and it is considered gharib, which means odd or strange. It's not sahih. Sahih can be translated as authentic. So the best those people could do to try to claim a black Prophet Muhammad is a description where he's described as brown. And that hadith is odd. ODD. That hadith is strange. And guess who says that? The author of the hadith collection that they are quoting, Tirmidhi. On the majority of hadith, the Sahih hadith that is, Muhammad ibn Abdullah is described as white. And for the record, we have mentions of slaves of Prophet Muhammad, and they are described as black. So if Prophet Muhammad and the Arabs were black, why would they specify that his slaves were black? But I'll leave it there. Aronisa wrote, if all religion derived from the info on the glyphs, why bother with religion and just study the glyphs? Now, you see, I'm not the kind to say that all religion derived from the glyphs. Now, you see, we have to be careful with what we're saying, because then we'll have some lambs who will say, look at these Egyptomaniacs. For example, the flood story is probably inspired by the Epic of Gilgamesh. As a matter of fact, I have a video from the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, England, and there is an artifact, and it talks about the Epic of Gilgamesh. It says that there is a similarity with the biblical flood story, and that's a museum's description. It's not my personal opinion. And I'm sorry, I don't know why it's freezing, but I think and I hope that you will still have the sound whenever it freezes. So, the Epic of Gilgamesh does not come from no glyphs. It doesn't come from Kemet. It does not even come from Africa. However, some people are trying to reduce or minimize or downplay the claims of similarities between writings from Kemet and writings that ultimately made it to the Bible after some selection was made, because now people are even trying to downplay the Council of Nicaea. So funny. What are the Apocrypha writing about then? I will struggle to pronounce Apocrypha, is it? I struggle with that word all the time. In French, it's just spelled different. And for those who don't know, French is my mother tongue. So, some people say Horus is Jesus, vice versa. I'm not saying that. I'm not claiming that. But some people say that. But once again, there is the great hymn to Aten. There is another hymn to Aten, which is sometimes referred to as a small hymn to Aten. That's why I specify the great hymn to Aten. Everybody go and look it up if you have not heard about it before and compare it with Psalm 104. This is, I could say plagiarism, but I'm going to say at least very similar. And that they don't talk about. But Ehrman doesn't talk about this. Richard Carrier doesn't talk about this. The majority of scholars who trying to argue that nothing was copied from Kemet or there was no influence from Kemet, they don't talk about this. Your pastors, your imam, your rabbis, they don't talk about this. Go and look it up for yourself. Because it's something very accessible. It's online. I'm not sending you on a quest where you have to learn a language or you have to travel somewhere or you have to ask a scholar. The great hymn to Aten is online, translated, and you will notice that the similarities have been done already. You will not even need to put great hymn to Aten versus Psalm 104. As you would type great hymn to Aten, you will notice that in the search result, you will see titles that mentions this similarity. I don't know who you're talking about right now. When you're saying you know he's not a Moor anymore. But I wasn't talking about anybody in particular. I was talking about Moors in general. Aronissa wrote, my cousin on my father's side is a Moor. See, Moors claim that they have a nationality. But my thing is this, very simple. Those who don't have a passport, they will get a pass. But some Moors have a passport. And you can just ask them what's in the nationality field of their passport. And I guarantee you that it doesn't say Moor or it doesn't say Moorish. And one guy a while back, years back, he lied publicly on air during a radio broadcast, radio program broadcasted online. Some people are so delusional, so much in denial that they will lie publicly. So because that lie was made publicly, dude didn't know how to behave and he behaved like a savage, unwise and uncivilized. And I ended up losing thousands of subscribers because that's how some people get down. Instead of saying, my bad, that's not accurate, they'll go at length and try to attack you and your loved ones as well. Some people are lame like that. So I want to check if you have hit that like button. There's only 8 likes so far. I think we can do better than that, don't you think? It's just a click of a button. Now, I went through all the comments So once again, I'm sharing the invite link, and I invite you to either get on the panel, ask your questions, make your statements. Otherwise, I guess we'll call it a day because I'm expecting participation and interaction. So, what do you want to do, brothers and sisters? Now, we have Aronessa who's interested in learning the Medu Neter. I'm looking for groups. So, is there anybody else that's interested? Whoever's interested in learning the Medu Neter, make sure you contact me here. Because, for example, if we had 5 people interested in learning the Medu Neter, I could propose a time slot. See, the difference with the writings of Kemet and the Abrahamic writings is that, and some of the Abrahamic believers are slick. For example, if we legitimately ask for records of Jesus, basically a record mentioning Jesus during his lifetime, not contemporaneous of Jesus, because contemporaneous to them it means like 70 years later. So basically today I can write and say 70 years ago, my great great grandfather, he performed all these miracles. He was the man. He defeated armies. He walked on water. He creep walked on water. He moonwalked on water. He did the doogie on water. He did the Harlem Shake on water. Is there any evidence to back it up? I don't mean to be sacrilegious. I don't mean to disrespect anybody's beliefs. I'm just trying to make you understand the logic of Abrahamic believers who try to make a case for historicity. I could talk about Abraham and Moses and Dawood and many others. Joseph or Yusuf or Yosef. Number 2 to the Pharaoh, a foreigner that was jailed after being accused of trying to take advantage of his master's wife. And he interprets dreams and he foresaw a famine, warned the Pharaoh. I mean, you know the biblical story. We don't have any records of a foreigner that became a vizier. We don't have any records of Pharaoh and his army dying in the water. So some people are trying to be slick when we ask for records of Jesus Christ during his lifetime. And they might ask, well, do you have any records for Osiris or Isis? Those are Neteru. Those are deities. With the writings of Kemet that we find on papyri, on walls, on many different type of artifacts, those people are attested in history. The writings were done during the lifetime of those individuals. So we have writings about kings, about queens, about princes, about princesses, about nobles, all type of people. All type of people. And guess what? If you're not familiar with my account, you can just scroll through the videos. Very recently, I've uploaded artifacts. That's like 1500 BC, 2000 BC. Because some people psychologically, because they know there's no record of Jesus during his lifetime, and that's the year 0 more or less, they feel like we will not have any records for people before that time. There's plenty of records. Actually, Kemet is like a archaeological country. You know that they find stuff all the time. Even if today they don't find anything else in Kemet, there's so much artifact not only in Egypt but in museums around the world. You've seen the artifacts that I have filmed in Denmark, in Italy, in Switzerland, in France, in the Netherlands. It's all on my account. Now, um, I need to find a shortcut for your username. The Hebrew Israelite wrote, "How about Paul's letter about Christ?" Thank you. Now, Paul is the earliest author of the New Testament. The writings attributed to Paul predate the writing attributed to the apostles, the other apostles, the ones who, according to the story, were disciples of Jesus, basically people who walked with him and broke bread with him. But did Paul ever meet Jesus? No matter what writing we have, even if we have a writing of Paul that is actually an original, he was not an eyewitness account. Brothers and sisters, do you know that there is not a single eyewitness account for Jesus Christ? Did you know that? According to the biblical story, Paul never met Jesus. Oh, still frozen. Can you hear me now? Well, my screen is frozen. Let me see if you can hear me. Screen is no longer frozen. No, that was before. Okay. Damn, brothers, y'all love typing, you know? Oh, my goodness. Nobody wants to get on the panel? Suit yourself. If you prefer to write, then it's okay. You can write, no problem. But make sure you do so now. I went through all the comments so far. Is there anybody that wants to learn the Medu Neter, brothers and sisters? Aronessa is asking, what led you to this? You gaining the knowledge you have, was there anything significant that happened? I don't know if I should say significant, but I was always interested in history and I was also a believer. Bear with me. Oh, what about sight? Okay, that's better. I had to sneeze, so that's the froze what I was about to sneeze. Anyway, it's frozen again. On my end, the screen is frozen, but I will still talk because I think you can always hear me. There we go, it's unfrozen now. Looks like there are some obscure forces trying to prevent me from sharing this. No, I'm just joking. So I was always interested with history, and I was once a believer, but believing is not knowing. So obviously, I looked for some attestation of these stories, of these tales, and little did I know then that there isn't any during the last lifetime of the majority of the patriarchs. What we have were written way, 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 way after. Even the Hadith, the Sahih Hadith, well, a few of them were written like 200 years after the lifetime of Muhammad. And the funny thing is that in order to justify the lack of evidence for Jesus, then they would talk about many other people. But these other people did not perform miracles. It's a bit strange that we have so much writing from Kemet before Jesus, during the lifetime of Jesus, and after the lifetime of Jesus. But any writing concerning the Son of God has not survived. How strange. To each his own. But let's have some fairness. If at least people could have the fairness to say, okay, we don't have any records during this lifetime, and let's keep it pushing. Because some people will tell you that they just believe and that's it. Believe and you will be saved. You will be saved, you and your family. There's something like that in the Bible. You just have to believe. The main thing is to believe. So some people will tell you outright, well, to me, he existed because I believe what is written in that book, because I was told it's the word of God. But other people say, well, I believe because it's attested. We have plenty of attestation. We have Tacitus. We have Flavius Josephus. We have blah, 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 blah. Flavius Josephus, that's after the lifetime of Jesus. And his mention of Jesus being the Christ or Son of God, I can't remember exactly, but it's known as a fraud. Okay? And Bart Ehrman, who is considered one of the leading scholar of the New Testament, he said that it's a fraud. Flavianum forgot the name, but like a Latin term of two words. Testimonius or whatever. I don't have it on the top of my head, but it's a fraud. It's known as a fraud. But you notice that all those people that they name, Tacitus, Josephus, and the crew, is always after the lifetime of Jesus Christ. You know what? I want to change the beat.
If you're a content creator of any kind.
Well, we have 10 likes. Not so bad. We could do better, but hey. So, Aronessa wrote, I ask, because I have had dreams of Kemet walking on the sand, seeing my second child's face on the glyph in a dream. I was pregnant. I then was reading the glyphs in my sleep. I guess she meant to write my sleep. Nat Turner stated that he had a vision and he saw some hieroglyphic signs. And that's before he went on his payback spree. But that's just for the record. Well, what is REM sleep? I don't know what REM sleep is because I thought it was a typo, but Aronessa stated again REM sleep. A question religion by what take your time when you write comments, brothers and sisters, because I have to decipher comments as well. Okay, so REM sleep is half awake, half sleep. Okay, I learned something. So I guess she meant to write a question religion by what I read and common sense. My family think I'm tripping, though. I'm glad you said that. I will touch on that. My thirst for more than what the world had given me to work with, I search more knowledge. Yes, usually our family members think we're tripping. They do. But not just our family members, but friends, colleagues. If we talk about it with colleagues, they take us for granted because there's so few of us. We are a minority. Sometimes they try to ridicule us. Sometimes they try to make fun, talk smack, being ironic, being disrespectful. I mean, there's some punk Pan-Africans in France. One in particular who's been dissing Kemetic people all the way, all the time.
Hey, do you want to save money
Dang,
and shop
hold on.
online? You should
Hold
click
on.
right here and download Honey. No.
All right. Forgot to put the loop. So, yes, there was a few, and one in particular has been dissing Kemetic people all through. And that same dude was so happy to work with a pedophile. I mean, it's ridiculous. But at the end of the day, the Maroons, the people who brought forth the ending of the slavery, they were at one point a minority as well. So in life, we have to do what we feel is right. And I guess as long as we're not hurting people, then we can't say that it's bad. If I decide to follow the path, the ancient knowledge of Kemet, am I hurting somebody? No, I'm not. So I decide to go that route. Just like some people decide to follow Krishna, just like some people decide to follow Buddha, to each his own. But nobody bothers those that follow Buddha or Krishna because there's so many of them. But since we are a minority, people like to make fun of us. They will not make fun of the Church of Scientology, though. And that's not just because they like Tom Cruise and Top Gun and Mission Impossible. It's a shame that many times we don't get respect, we don't get consideration, but it's a fact, it's a reality, brothers and sisters. We cannot downplay that. Sometimes people talk real slick. But what we're talking about, as long as we're careful and we're not making shortcuts or linguistic gymnastics or linguistic acrobatics, what we're talking about can be documented. So it is factual. Kemet is factual. I've shown you Kemet written. white Egyptologists do state in their book that Kem, which is the root of the word Kemet, Kem means black. This is not some Afrocentrist claim. This is no black supremacist claim. This is scholarship. PhDs say that. So, Akhenaten is attested, documented, with plenty of artifacts. Nefertiti is attested and documented. And besides the anonymous Nefertiti bust that is in Germany, we have several depictions of Nefertiti or Neferet Et. Ramses II or Ramesu is attested. We have plenty of records of him. It might be the pharaoh for which we have the most record, or one of the pharaohs for which we have the most record. Same for Amenhotep III. Guess who's in the background there? Well, Per Ankh wrote Peace to the Family. I know we've had Per Ankh before. See, Per Ankh, that's Medu Neter. Most of you know Ankh. Many of you probably don't know Per. Per Ankh wrote people are victims of propaganda and suffer from cognitive dissonance. Now, you see, brothers and sisters, some will say it's a shameful plug, but if people like what I do, well, Topcast knows he wrote Per equals house. Indeed. Indeed. Now, if you like what I do, you have the right to support me. Now, there's something called Super Chat. I used to get some before. I don't get them anymore. I wonder why, but it is what it is. Then there's a PayPal, and the address is at the top. It's paypal.me/myartforever, and there's a Cash App as well, $ myartforever. You see? And if some of you, for whatever reason, don't feel like donating, you could take the classes and learn the Medu Neter with us. Do we have 5 people willing to learn the Medu Neter? Just 5 will do. You know, from 5 to 10. If there's more than 5, I'm happy with it. Damn, it takes a while now. Okay. Topcast, are you learning the Medu Neter by yourself? Or are you taking lessons? And if you're taking lessons, would you like to tell us who you're learning with? think I might have too many windows open. Let's clear it up a little bit, and it might stop freezing. Now, Topcast wrote that he's self-taught. All right. He wrote, I probably do need some lesson though. Well, you probably know that I've been teaching Medu Neter for a while, so if you feel ready, that will be two people, because the sister Aronessa also is willing to learn. So if you will be willing to learn and take classes with me, it means we will need just 3 more people in order to come up with a group that I will propose a time slot for. Look at this. Yeah. That's not a good look, is it? Okay. Aronessa is asking, why is the Illuminati associated with the Eye of Horus? That's because in terms of symbolism, they just decided to use an eye. So some people would say it's the Eye of Horus. We can't say for sure if it's the Eye of Horus, because the Eye of Horus is depicted in a particular manner. But the Freemasons, they were greatly inspired by ancient Egypt. You know, earlier we talked about family. But Abrahamic believers, there's many of them who really don't like people who are into Kemet. People who are into other belief system or religion, they're not tripping. But Abrahamic believers, if you're into Kemet, they might claim that they're cool, but eventually many of them have a resentment. They don't like it at all. It is what it is. You can never please everybody. But the worst to me are the fence riders, and we have many cases of fence riders. Some are fence riders and some are damn near traitors. But it is what it is, you know. In life, there's always adversity. And that's true. You see what Topcast wrote? It ain't just that, Shaka. Anytime you're black and you're into black things, folks will hate on you. It's a reality indeed. And white people get together, you know, it's a team. When black people get together, they might say it's a gang or mafia. When Chinese people get together, they're doing their thing. And it's the same for many different ethnic groups. When black people get together, some people say that it's, you know, it's not good for many reasons. But I think it's because they're so used to black people following. The Abrahamic believers, who would dispute that they've been following the white man forever? Now, some are trying to be sleek and say, well, we're not following the white man. And the funny thing is that some of them, some Abrahamic believers like to say, Well, you guys are into Egyptology. It was the white man who brought you Egyptology. Well, it was the white man who wrote these glyphs on the walls, on all the artifacts that we found all around the world. Are you kidding me? So now we have people who say King James was black. I mean, whew. The things we hear, man. The power of numbers. It's their main strength. Their numbers. They are very numerous. And the leaders of those Abrahamic movements are making quite a fair bit of money. And they intend on keeping it that way. It's life. Topcast wrote, a lot of black folks think Christianity comes from Africa. It doesn't, no more than Islam does. And it's good that you say that, because indeed, oh man. Some people will say that the oldest church is in Ethiopia, even if it was true. What difference would it make? Wasn't the Ethiopians who came up with these Christian writings that ultimately ended up being what we call the Bible? Some people will talk about Haile Selassie, or we just talk about the Queen of Sheba, for which we don't have any attestation either when it comes to her historicity. But the Queen of Sheba, if she existed and if Solomon existed, she was just his jump off. She was impressed by the dude's wisdom. He hit that and quit that. I'm sorry to say it like this, but they didn't get married, did they? Did they get married? Did they get married? Is there any text that says that Solomon and the Queen of Sheba got married? So he just don't hit it and quit it. So it's quite strange that some people have so much passion for a lady that just got the business by Solomon. Topcast wrote, we have been enslaved under Islam first and then Christianity. Well, many black folks don't know that. Or they act like they don't know. Particularly the black Muslims. They love to talk about the transatlantic slave trade. They love to talk about that. All Hebrews and Christians had to... All Hebrews and Christians hate to, but have to admit the oldest Bible on earth begins with the Greeks. Oh, it's painful for black Hebrews and black Christians. For those who are not black, it doesn't matter. Greek and Rome, ancient Greece and ancient Rome is really the classical era or the root of the Western/European civilization. So they don't have a problem with that. Even if it wasn't Greece, if it was Rome, they're cool with that. Now, if the writings came from Timbuktu, I don't think we will have so many Western Christians. But anyway, it begins with the Greeks in Alexandria. There is no ancient Hebrew Bible as an artifact. Oh my. They went from the Greek and translated it in Hebrew. Some fragments were found, so the scholars tell us. But indeed, I haven't heard of a Hebrew Bible that predates a Greek Bible. But then sometimes we learn every day. I might learn something today. Somebody might tell me, well, there's this Hebrew Bible located in such and such museum or such and such university or such and such center, and it predates any Greek Bible. Now, Aronessa wrote, "We are still prisoners of war from the day they took our ancestor from our motherland." No, we're not prisoners of war. Let's not go that far. Let's not go that far. Topcast wrote, okay, maybe he meant to write why they tell us. That their civilization begins with ancient Greece, and the ancient Greeks told us that they went to Egypt. No, but the Greeks going to Egypt, it doesn't mean that Egypt is the foundation of the Greek civilization. We have to be careful with what you were saying, because then they will, do some extrapolation. Is that how you say it in English? They will basically exaggerate whatever we say. Because they don't cut us much slack. For any slightest we'll make, they will make it so big as if to show that we don't make sense at all. But it is said that Pythagoras and Thales went to Egypt, just like Herodotus did. Topcast wrote, "The Silver Scrolls is their oldest artifact. Can't reproduce an entire book from an artifact the size of a cigarette butt." You're going hard on them. Now, I'm not aware of the Silver Scrolls. I will look up Encyclopedia Britannica to see if there's an entry for that. Now, you might have artifacts larger than a cigarette butt, credit card size. Our people really think that they're scrolls, folded, like a roll, like really scrolls like you see in movies. Our people really think that, you can go to some museums and you will find the scrolls from the time of Dawood and the time of Moses in them. Many of our people do think that. How many Christians have told me when I ask them if they can, if there's any record for Jesus during his lifetime, and they answer yes, in museums. Do you know how many times that happened? And I ask, what museum? They don't even know, but they say yes, it exists. Oh, I get you. I thought you meant something different. So, of course, my point being that whites originate in ancient Greece, then there is no way whites built ancient Kemet. Yes, at best, the Hebrews can only claim an oral tradition because they have no ancient artifacts to back them up. Um, okay, well, for whatever Wikipedia is worth, if I type in silver scrolls, I think that a Wikipedia entry will come up first. So, Ketef Hinan. Okay. If I had an ancient Encyclopedia Britannica, I would have quoted it. Oh, but let me try Ketef Hinan. Ketef Hinom. Okay, nothing. All right. So, for whatever Wikipedia is worth, it says the Ketef Hinnom scrolls, also described as Ketef Hinnom amulets, are the oldest surviving text currently known from the Hebrew Bible, dated 600 BC. And before I read the rest, it will surely be some excerpt from one book. The two silver scrolls were uncovered in 1799 at Ketef Hinnom, an archaeological site southwest of Old City of Jerusalem, which were found to contain a variation of the priestly blessings found in Numbers 6, chapter 24 to 26. The scrolls were dated paleographically to the late 7th or early 6th century BCE, placing them in the First Temple period. There you have it. There you have it. Now, Aronessa is asking, is Rh negative blood an Egyptian trait? I don't deal with the genetics and the DNA. I'm not familiar with that. I don't deal with that. There are depictions of people of Kemet, and I've documented that for years in many different museums from many different countries, and they clearly look black/African or Negroid in the scientific sense of the meaning, at least before that was used, that term Negroid, similarly to Caucasian for whites. Because we have some brothers now who tell you that the Arabs and the Hebrews were black because they broke down the DNA. But I've yet to see any scholar, any specialist in the field, any PhD stating that. So I really don't know. Topcast wrote, the lack of artifacts is why I keep going back to the Septuagint. So the scroll of Ketef Hinnom are older than the Dead Sea Scrolls. How they get an entire Bible out of them scrolls? It's not out of them scrolls. It's out of many different writing found here and there. Um, but it's probably mainly with those writings that are Greek indeed. In the Bible, it says that Jesus said, I am the Alpha and the Omega. And Alpha and Omega, that's Greek. So I read an article stating that Jesus spoke both Hebrew and Aramaic. Are we to believe that he spoke Greek as well? Within a Roman Empire? So I guess Jesus was a polyglot. Topcast wrote, the dominant ancient Kemet haplotype is E1B1B, the cousin of E1B1A. We have Inspire One in the place to be. How you doing, brother? Feel free to hit that like button, brothers and sisters, and remember, I've shared the invite link, but I'm going to share it again. We always have new people who join us. For those who are not scared to show their face, and you are welcome to join us on the panel directly. So, Topcast wrote exactly, they didn't have a Bible, and he added, they were speaking Aramaic and the Koine Greek. And then we have some Christian apologists who have the nerve to talk smack, to talk sleek about Kemetic people. But they can't do that because they have Negroes behind them, ready to do anything for them. It is what it is. A lot of people hate on Kemet. I'm telling you, the artifacts are there. Artifacts for days. During the lifetime of the individuals mentioned, not 70 years later, Amenhotep III, Ptahhotep, the wisdom of Ptahhotep, the maxims of Ptahhotep, sometimes labeled as the oldest book in the world. The Amenhoteps, the Ramesu, Hatshepsut, female ruler. We have a name, we have records for her, for what she did, for what was done during her lifetime. Notably, that expedition to Punt. And Hatshepsut's brother was not really happy that she got on the throne when he was young. So I heard he tried to erase some of her artifacts, or at least her name. Even Akhenaten, he was seen as a renegade. So they kind of tried to erase his name from memory. Oh, we have the incredible TOP. So I'm going to pause the music. Hotep Sen.
Hotep saying, how you doing, Shaka? Nice to
I'm
meet
Chin.
you.
Chin, nice to meet you, brother. Feel free to speak.
A lot of times I get into arguments with people over religion, so I generally try not to talk to them about it because what I found over the years is that a lot of people they only deal with religions on a surface level. They don't really go and investigate, well, how did this thing start? Where did it come from? Who were the actors? Even if you come to find that some of those records are not true, you still have to do the research, and most people don't. And I noticed that this was um, particularly uh, 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 rampant among Hebrew Israelites. And I always in the debate with them with the Septuagint Bible because I know, and I'm not even a Hebrew Israelite, but I know that it's the oldest Bible on the planet and it's written in Greek and it was penned and constructed in Africa, not in not in Jerusalem or the Holy Land or wherever they claim that they from. But at the same time, I do recognize, you know, through the study of demographics that people move around. So, in all likelihood, some Africans left out of Africa and settled in the area of Jerusalem. And now, many millennia later, they don't even identify with the fact that they came from Africa, which has been scientifically established.
Um, I kind of, as they say in England, I kind of lost the plot. Um, can you come again about these black people eventually going to Jerusalem? Can you come again for me, please?
Well, scientifically speaking, in regards to demographics or how people move around, it's been stated that people, us human beings, that we originate from the continent of Africa. And
Mm,
if that's true, in order for people to move into Jerusalem, they have to logically leave out of Africa to do so. And
mm-hmm.
so logically speaking, if you continue to follow the logic, then the original inhabitants of that area are going to be black Africans. And
Well,
so I don't argue with Hebrews when they say that that's the area that they come from. But when it comes to the actual artifacts and what's written in history in regards to what they have done, then they fall short a lot because they don't have, unlike in Kemet, they don't have a lot of artifacts to back up the things that they say, like the Bible, for example. If you're saying to me that the Hebrew Bible is what starts all of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, etc., then you have to show me some artifacts of that. Just telling me that is not proof of anything. And every time I go back and search, I always go, it always takes me right back to the Septuagint. You can't go any further back than that. And you mentioned that prior to the Septuagint, that there was a lot of writings. And even these writings weren't written in Hebrew because Hebrews, though, for the Silver Scrolls that you looked up, is just an example that because that's what's called Proto Hebrew. So this means they just beginning to write, which means the majority of them are not writing. They're not literally. They're not literate. So how do you know all of these things? It's got to be from oral tradition. And anybody who got any common sense know that oral tradition can it can fail because people can embellish certain things or leave out certain things. And this is what makes the artifacts important.
yeah, but there's one thing where I don't share the same sentiment. Um, the conclusion that people must have been black in certain areas because the first humans were black, I don't really agree with that. Now I don't deal with anthropology. It's not really my lane, but it appears to me that the population of the Levant, the Near East, will most likely come from Mesopotamia, Sumer, Akkad, and all that. And what's important is what time period that we're talking about. Now, I've said that many times. If people talk about 20,000 BC, now these kind of dates I don't deal with them, but there's a standard of ore in the British Museum where we can see their phenotype. And what I've been arguing for years, and I've demonstrated that using artifacts from many different places, is that from at least 2500 BC, 2500 BC, the inhabitants of Arabia, Canaan, and the neighboring countries, like Syria and all that. I mean, really, at one point they used to call it Syria, the area Syria Palestine. Anyway, um, my sense is that they were white, at least from 2500 BC. You see, so if some
I
people want
agree
to
with
argue,
you.
yeah. So if some people want to argue that 4000 BC or 40,000 BC they were black, I'm like, okay, I don't deal with that type of dates. But what's important to remember is that the standard of Ur, that's Chaldea, and Chaldea is where Abraham is said to come from, even though it's not attested in history, which means that the whole Abrahamic thing, if Abraham existed, he came from a place where the inhabitants were white. So to whoever wants to talk that black Semite stuff, it's a fair, and so many of us think that the Semites were black. Now we have some people, some have transitioned, and they've shown us black people living in different Asian countries. But if you look at documentaries, they would tell you like when we find black people in India and other places, but in India there's like let's say a tribe of black people, and the people say that it was due to slavery. You see, and that's one thing that happened many times. Now we have some people, some black people, like in places like different islands, around Asia and so on. But I think we kind of went overboard with it. Like there's even some. I saw a video of a black man in Iran, and then someone shared that video and said, "You see the original Iranians." I'm like, "Come on, man! The original, this original." It's like me showing you black people living in Russia and saying, "You see, well, some black people in Russia, so the original inhabitants of Russia." Come on, man! In Palestine, there's some black people living there, and they're not that well treated, just like in Ukraine, being bombed and everybody's feeling sorry for them. But we see how they train black people. But yeah, we have some black people in Palestine, and some people will use that to say, well, look, these are the original inhabitants of Palestine. We love to say that, the original this, the original that. But when it comes to the people of Canaan, many people are familiar with the wall painting of Beni Hassan. And we can clearly see what they look like. And it's not the only depictions of Asiatics who most likely came from Syria or Palestine or Canaan, because when they were chased by Kamose and his family, they fled to that area. So that's why people believe that they come from that place. And as a matter of fact, in the British Museum, I filmed this description about the Hyksos, and it stated that they came from Canaan. You see, so.
Well, I just want to say that you bring up a very important point, and I do agree with you. Is determining which group of people was where and when is entirely a factor of what time period you're looking at. So when I say that black people was the first people in that area, I mean before any other modern humans came about. But since that time, what you are saying is absolutely correct. And to just to add this in there, these folks would be considered the first white people, quote unquote white people, before what we know of as white people. So yeah, I agree with you 100% with what you said. You right on point with that.
And
And
brother, go ahead.
one other thing that I want to speak on is that you also on point in regards to how some of these black people got into these areas. One method was through slavery, and we see evidence of this just in with the Islamic slave trade and the transatlantic slave trade. Look at me, I'm in America, but my ancestors is from somewhere else. You understand what I'm saying? But and also if anybody has ever read Destruction of Black Civilization, then it also is pointed out in that book that some black people were treasonous. And when the Asians got chased out, they got chased out too. So that would be another mechanism for how these black people also ended up in those areas during these
Mm,
the particular time period that we're speaking about.
yeah. And the funny thing is that you gave that example, which is factual. We have people that we call African Americans, and we know for the most part we know that it's due to the transatlantic slave trade, there's triangular slave trade, the European Christian slave trade, slave market. But we have some brothers who say, well, we were there, we were there before the slave. Some would even say, some of our people say that there was no slave trade, or that there was so few black people who were brought to the Americas that the majority of black people were already in America. I mean, we cannot hear it all. We cannot hear it all. And the Olmec heads, the phenotype, it kind of look like a black phenotype, but then again, I urge people to look at the phenotype of people like um um the people from the country where they do the haka,
Mm-hmm.
um what's the name of it? There's a few places where they do that. But if you look at their phenotype, just picture their face like drawn or sculpted, and they have kind of thicker lips than the average white man. You see,
Mm-hmm.
but we kind of want to be everywhere or everything, but African, and that's sad. That's sad, but it is what it
Indeed,
is. And and
indeed.
and, and the funny thing's been uh you know Wesley Muhammad and people like him, using the Arabic and changing the definitions of words to try to say that the Arabs were black. And
Mm-hmm.
the sad things are most people don't really know the language, and they would not really try to get with the language. But the word Abiad is the main word for white in Arabic. And now those people try to say that it means black because of a quote from what's his name again, Ibn Manzur in his Lisan al Arab. But in the beginning of the definition of the word Abiad, he says Dida Aswad, which means opposite of black, and that kills the argument already. But our
Mm-hmm.
people, you can throw some smoke screen and that's it.
Yeah, well, with Islam, we got it bad, much worse with Islam than we do with Christianity, in my opinion, because Christianity is a lot newer, and most of us are not even aware that we went through a similar situation 1,000 years before white people from Europe even came to
Mm,
Africa. But in regards to Islam, it's right in the Quran itself dozens of times that Muhammad was a white man. It
no, not in the
describes
Quran, in the
him
Hadith. In the Hadith.
yeah, in the Hadith that Muhammad is
Mm,
considered to be a white man. That's how it describes him.
yeah.
And so, as a Muslim,
Yes.
it's very it's hard for me to understand how, as a Muslim, what kind of mental gymnastics you got to play to act like you can't see that and act like it's not
And
what it is.
but that's the thing. You see, the word used for white is abiyad. So there's of course from Sahih Bukhari and also Sahih Muslim, the description from Muhammad described as Rajul Abiyad, white man. This white man. When someone asked, "Well,
Mhm.
who is Muhammad?" They replied, Rajul Abiyad. So it means white man. Rajul meaning man, and Abiyad meaning white. And what description, some people say, at that time we were on a horse, and I could see the whiteness of his armpit, the whiteness of his thigh, the whiteness of his stomach, the whiteness of his leg. So I mean, almost all body parts, the whiteness of his cheek as well. And
Mhm.
there's two things that they try to say. They try to say that Abiyad actually used by the Arabs back then meant black, which is funny to me. Or they
Mhm.
say it meant noble, you know. But
Mhm.
there's no such thing as a noble cheek or a noble arm or a noble leg.
Mhm.
So it's desperation really. It's just
Mhm.
desperation. They are desperate.
Yeah,
you know. And
it's really
besides,
sad. It's
mhm,
really sad that as
mhm.
black people, we don't have a problem with celebrating deities that don't look anything like us.
Yeah, yeah.
I find that to be a tragedy
It is a
of
tragedy.
epic proportions,
It is a tragedy.
and it speaks to um, the intense brainwashing that we have been through over these, according to some scholars, over this 6,000 year period that we've been interacting with these foreign folks.
It is. Like, um, many Chinese people, their deity or prophets or messengers, they will look like them. Same for the Indians, the culture, the language, and people on different islands, different small communities, and the Arabs, of course, they will have Muhammad, and so even if some people, because indeed they like to say, well, the majority of Muslims are not Arabs. The Arabs, like, some would say like 10% of Muslims, some would say 1% of Muslims. They would say there's more Muslims in Indonesia than any other country. They would say a whole lot of things, but he will be an Asian or an Asiatic. So, that's good with them. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And Jesus, being from according to the story from Canaan, that will make him also a Caucasian. You see, so
Mhm.
all the Caucasians they are good with that. They are good with that. And then they have their Apostle Paul, who's the earliest New Testament writer, or basically he's writing at the earliest New Testament writing, and he went all over these different parts of like Turkey and different like I think he might have went to Greece or something like that, but like around Europe, the Mediterranean, and we have the Catholic Church, the popes and all that. It's their thing, you see. So the Western civilization, but us, I mean, dang, we follow this stuff, and we have some stuff, and Kemet is like the most documented, but it's
Mhm.
also amongst black people, unfortunately, the most hated because of the religious or Abrahamic literature, um, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And Islam talks about Pharaoh all the time. Pharaoh, I mean, Muhammad is mentioned 4 times by name in the Quran. He is mentioned by other titles,
Mhm.
but by name he's mentioned 4 times. But Pharaoh is mentioned so many times, and every time it's like something very bad, very negative. It's like almost, it's like you feel like next to the devil, next to Shaitan, then that's Pharaoh. You see, and
Mhm.
and and of course, uh, we have this story of the Hebrews enslaved by the cruel Egyptians, the cruel Pharaoh that is not named, by the way. Pharaoh is a
Mhm.
title, it's like king, you see.
Mhm.
And some scholars, they will write about slavery, and they will say the typical, well, slavery existed in all societies, even all the way back to ancient Egypt with the Hebrews. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
There's no evidence for that.
There's no evidence for that. There's a
No
there's a
evidence.
brother, he's from Senegal, and he wrote a book about the um, sub-Saharan slave trade, and he argued that there was like I think like 10 million people who died because of this uh, sub-Saharan slave trade, Arab or Muslim slave trade. Now, when he
Mhm.
released his book, some Pan Africans, implied that he was like a Zionist agent, which is funny because it's weird. Like, you cannot even talk about history anymore. But when he studied his book, like in the beginning of his book, that's what he wrote. Slavery
Mhm.
existed in all societies. He starting from ancient Egypt. With the Hebrews. I'm like, man, please wait. You know,
Mhm.
but it's
Yeah,
it's just a
that's
shame.
wild.
It's just a shame because he shows that um our people are really not versed in history. You know.
Not only not versed in history, but something that's very important that a lot of people don't pay attention to is when you look at other groups of people, they exalt their history, you
Yes.
know, and even if other people have a problem with their history, they still are not suppressed from partaking in it.
Yeah.
But obviously, our history must be so glorious that people got to steal it. Lay claim to it, say it was theirs. Be from Europe, claim that you came to Africa to do something that you didn't even do in Europe.
Mm,
It's and we compound the problem by not taking it to be as important as it really is, because if you don't know what happened before you, how do you know what steps to take in the future?
mm, it's true. Now, like what you said is so true. Other people who uphold their history. Um, Now, there's some controversy with Muhammad because, according to the Hadith, he married Aisha when she was 6, and he consummated the marriage with her when she was 9 years old.
Oh,
But
don't
that,
don't
that
don't bring that up. You gonna
yeah.
have a whole bunch of Muslims in the chat.
Oh no, they will not come because they cannot dispute that. That's the Sahih Hadith. But
Mhm.
that gets a pass, and among so many other things. But Napoleon, for the French, is like the great emperor, but he reinstalled slavery. You see, and there is De Gaulle, General De Gaulle.
Mhm.
The Second World War, he was in exile in England, and he's seen as a great figure of fighting against the Nazis and Hitler and them, and encouraging people to fight and all that. But when they had this march of victory, he ordered that the blacks are way in the back. He didn't want the black people in front. You see. So
Mhm.
the dude was racist, and it's crazy because if it wasn't for African soldiers, right now in Europe we will all be speaking German. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So they will uphold him. Now he was probably less racist than Napoleon, because there's a quote from Napoleon where he said, well, this quote is attributed to him. He addressed someone who was talking for the rights of the slaves or the enslaved African, and he said, if you would have come here with that stuff, we would have hung you from the highest pole. I'm paraphrasing, but something like that. I mean,
Mhm.
but Napoleon in France, you can barely criticize him. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
they will uphold that. You know what I'm saying? But
Mhm. You know,
yeah, go
you
ahead.
know, something else that's very ironic, when it comes to black people, who call themselves Moors or Muslims, is that the transatlantic slave trade started with Moors or
Hmm.
Muslims in
Yes.
Europe with the fall of Grenada. So if
Mm,
you are a black person and you call yourself a Moor, or you call yourself a Muslim, and you're not aware of that fact of history, then you have to go do some studying and some soul searching and ask yourself, why do you subscribe to these things? When I mean, all of the history of our interactions with quote unquote white people have not been good.
mm. And the main issue, obviously, is the belief system, the Abrahamic belief system.
Hmm.
And some of the craziest thing we hear, some black people sometimes say, well, slavery wasn't that bad because it got us to know about the Bible, it got us to know about Jesus. And I'm like, oh man. You think that if someone is not a Christian or a Jewish or a Muslim, then is evil by default, as if before those religions came forth, people did not live and did not have moral codes. Ma'at is a moral code.
Hmm.
The people
Yeah.
of Kemet, they will live, try to uphold Ma'at. Now, I'm not saying they were perfect, nobody's perfect, but for the most part, for 3,000-year-old civilization or dynastic empire, you know,
Hmm.
um, really they did well. Now
Yeah.
we have some
That I
people who
agree.
want to talk about, oh man, they're enslaved. Now there was some conflict with the Nubians, but then
Hmm.
again, the Asiatic, some of Hyksos sent a letter to the Nubian to tell them, okay, let's attack Kemet together. And I
Hmm.
even have a quote now recently. I wrote it already, but the author specifies that they actually fought together against Kemet. And he mentions that letter that was intercepted by Kamose, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
But even if it wasn't for that reason of the alliance, yeah, he mentioned there was an alliance between the Nubians and the Hyksos. But even if it wasn't for that alliance, there was some conflict. It's not something. Which society was always peaceful for like thousands of years. But Ramesses' wife, Ames Nefertari, wasn't she from the south? Wasn't she from a Nubian lady? You know, so we have, for example, there was a debate, and the guy showed on the screen where the Nubians are like trampled by the horses, of Tutankhamun, or I don't know, I think it's Tutankhamun's stool, but he was careful not to show the other side of that box because on the other side we have the same scene with the Asiatics, and it's
Mhm.
probably
Yeah, I
due to
know.
this
I'm familiar with
alliance.
what you're talking about.
Yeah, you see.
Yeah, I'm
So
familiar.
so now that I hear people talking about there was chattel slavery in Kemet and stuff like that. Basically, they're trying to say, well, okay, we have the transatlantic slave trade, but you guys did this too. And I'm like, I mean, come on, man. This
Mhm.
same author that I'm quoted about this alliance between the Nubians and the Hyksos, and he translates actually this Kamote, the second Kamose Stela,
Mhm.
but um, he stated that in Kemet there wasn't slavery like in Rome, like ancient Greece or ancient Rome. So it wasn't the same at all. Now you had some servitude. Some people are not tripping over prisoners of war.
Mhm.
So if you have prisoners of war, then you are cruel. You have a war with the dude, and you're supposed to give him bread and say, "Okay, you go home. We won. You go home." That's
Mhm.
mercy if you're a prisoner of war, and if they make you do some labor. It's better than getting killed. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But they're trying to vilify Kemet so it can fit their Abrahamic narrative of people of ancient Kemet being evil. They don't have any
Mhm.
records for their belief system. They don't have any
Mhm.
attestation for the different stories, you see. So if they can try to find a way to validate some enslavement and cruelty from Kemet, then in their mind, they are validating that story, this narrative, you see.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, that's basically the same story that the Hebrews put forth by claiming that they were slaves in Egypt at
mm,
a particular time, even though the Egyptians themselves, they got all this pictorial writing all over the ancient desert, and they have mentions of conflicts with other people too, of which you just pointed out, but none whatsoever about any folks called the Hebrews.
well, the
And this is
Hebrews,
this is
they don't
this
even
is one of
exist
the
in
reasons
history.
why I can't. Yeah, this is why I can't take them seriously.
Mm,
Yeah, it's very difficult to take most religious people seriously.
yes, but they are so numerous, so they run the show.
Mhm.
We have to keep
Well,
it
yeah,
real. They
they
run the
they
show.
they real effective at shouting down, counterpoints is what
Mm,
I would say.
yeah, they're on the show. Because at the end of the day, in, in, in light of history or against Kemet, because Kemet is documented, it's factual. Um, the Jews, the Hebrews, the Muslims, they will ally themselves in a hot minute. Because they
Mhm.
have to validate their narrative. You see,
Mhm.
so um, we have also, of course, this. Now, this guy went to school all the way to PhD, and after he got his PhD, before he said that African studies are African study degree are BS degrees. He said that on the, what was it called, the Breakfast Club, a
Mhm.
very um, very large audience. He went and said that. Now this dude, he went and studied Islamic studies. He got his PhD in Islamic study. That's good. But somebody's going to learn, black studies, and he gets a degree. That's BS degree. But anyway, he went
Mhm.
all the way to PhD, and he said that.
The railway never being built. Road Kemet garbage. If you want to get authentic,
Come on, go ahead.
about blacks conquering blacks. Throw Maya in the trash can. Throw Amin Ra, the slave making God away.
So,
That's
oh,
that's very interesting when you take into considerations that Christians use amen at the end of their prayers and Muslims believe in Christianity.
but the things that I think we have to be careful. I wouldn't say that the amen at the end of prayer derives from the deity amen, because as you might know, according to the transliteration, it should be pronounced more amen than amen.
Mhm.
And besides, amen means like the hidden one. When amen they say it means so be it. So
It's
we
just
have to be
I find
careful.
I find it yeah I find it I understand what you're saying and
Mm.
your point is valid, but I just find it to be highly coincidental. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. And it's like, Sarah. Some people, who have Sarah, the son sun, or the son of God, which is a
Mhm.
title that appears many times before the name of a Nesu, or a king, or a pharaoh. Some people will try to make a correlation with the given name Sarah. Same for Mary Imen, for example, or Mary Amen. They will try to make a correlation with Miriam, you see, or even Mary being meaning beloved. They will try to make a correlation with the given name Mary, but what we call Mary in English derives from Miriam, so it's not really the same. And I really urge all the brothers and sisters to be careful with what we're saying, because we've been under attack. What you've heard there from that PhD, that was in like 2010 slash 2011.
Mhm.
Um, or actually, it was maybe 2009 slash 2010, something like that. And then you had the people who use the hotep as a negative. These hotep people, hotep n words. So anything that we'll say, they will try to use it against us. I mean,
Mhm.
this Richard Carrier coming up, trying to diss Jabari, talking about black supremacy. I mean, he got paid. He got paid by Garfield. I don't know if Garfield pays the other people who go on his platform. I don't know if he pays black people that go on his platform. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But I don't think it's a coincidence.
Mhm.
I think it bothers them that we have more and more black people that are leaving the Abrahamic belief system. So they're trying to ridicule, they're trying to diss, they're trying to minimize. You see?
Mhm.
So I really hope that Jabari will be able to debate him. Now, if he doesn't debate Jabari, he will look very bad, because he's the one who threw the first stone. He's the one who drew first blood.
Mhm.
So Jabari said
Yeah, I
that there's,
watch I watch Brother Jabari. I've
yeah.
been watching you guys for years, man.
Mm,
For years, man.
all right.
Like
So, hmm
yeah, like I mean, it's a lot of your older videos that
hmm
I put some people on or try to put people on,
all right.
because what I found dealing with any information with Kemet is it's a lot of disinformation or misinformation out there. You have
Yeah.
people claiming that, oh, they drew a helicopter on the tomb,
Yeah.
and without really scrutinizing the actual inscription to see,
Yeah.
so that they will see that it's been written over. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Superimposed glyph, indeed. The Abydos
And
what.
the light and the batteries and spaceships and
Yeah, yeah, the battery and the light bulbs with this lotus flower with a snake in the middle of it. I mean, there was a website. I forgot the title, but I will share the links because it breaks it down. But the website
Mhm,
is no longer online, you see. So if I knew, I would have saved the article. But other people also mentioned that, But indeed,
mhm,
when people see it first, they're impressed because it looks like spacecrafts and stuff like that. But it's just a glyph for the arm with some other glyphs like the loaf of bread and stuff like that. But And that's a shame. That's just the lack of knowledge about this culture that we should be really interested in. There's so many white
Mhm.
people who learn the Medu Neter is just crazy. People don't have a clue.
Mhm.
And then you have the lazy ones who don't want to study, so they say, "Oh, it hasn't been deciphered." You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And many
Yeah,
of them bear, yeah, many of them bear Kemetic names.
this is why I took such a great interest in the Medu Neter. Like I mentioned in the chat earlier, like I'm not like an expert or nothing. I can read a little bit. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying, but I'm self taught, and it
mm,
it comes because of the interest that I had in
mm,
learning what was being said.
mhm.
As far as folks that say that it's never been deciphered, um, I mean, I'm going by the information that's available now. It do seem like it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not like a super cryptological code that can't be broken that you need like a supercomputer for. But that to say that it's possible, to that it can be deciphered and understood. And I would implore, for folks who are interested, like folks like myself who are pretty much like autodidacts. If you're interested, go for it. If not, seek out some assistance from folks like yourself.
Mm. Yeah, it's not easy to learn by yourself. I mean, that's how I started. The
Mhm.
book I had was not the greatest one, so I kind of stopped because I was like a bit lost. But
Mhm.
then, when that guy came up with that video talking about Allah in pre-dynastic Nubia Temple of Ptah, I went into Budge's book and it took the time, and it was really like an initiation. And ever since
Mhm.
then, I got myself familiar. That's because I really wanted to disprove that foolishness. I mean, the guy,
Mhm.
I don't know if you've seen that video. When there's a Runoko Rashidi tour, actually, I mean, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, if you type in Allah is not in Nubia Temple of Ptah, you will see the actual video with the claim. It was a Runoko Rashidi tour in what was it? Is it the University of is it the one in Pennsylvania? I forgot which university museum that is, but it might be Pennsylvania, Nubia Temple of
Mhm.
Ptah. But anyway, Runoko Rashidi is doing his tour, and then that guy came up. He's a Muslim,
Mhm.
uh, and he. Some people say that he's a. In Senegal, you have some Muslims that like uh, in French we call them Mourid. They used to follow Sheikh Amadou Bamba, but people are not really too familiar with that in
Mhm.
America. Even though you have a fair bit of people from Senegal that's in America, but anyway, the guy is a Muslim, and he comes up and say, "Yeah, this is Allah. This glyph here says Allah and all that." So the people are impressed because he's making a breakdown, and you see, people don't know the Medu Neter. The majority of people don't know. So
Mhm.
the guy uploaded a video, and he went on many message board back then, and then people were like, "Oh, my God!" But that's just ridiculous. He chose one of the glyph that appears the most. If at least he would have chosen a glyph that occurs rarely, you know what I'm saying? But
Mhm.
the guy was dumb as hell. He chose really a glyph that appears so often. It's just crazy. But I mean, we kind of heard it all. We kind
What
of heard
what
it
what 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 do you think about the folks that claim that Israel is written on the one stela?
all. Have you seen the video Kemet and Ma'at or Introduction to Kemet?
The video that you did.
Yeah.
It's been some time since I've seen it, but yeah,
Oh
I've
yeah.
seen it.
Well, I addressed that in that video. The Merian Petastella or Merian Petastella. They claim indeed it's the oldest mention of Israel, but it doesn't spell Israel, it spells Isiriar, and it's not talking about the place, it's talking about people, because
Mhm.
we have the determinative of the city man and the city woman, and also,
Mhm.
if I'm not mistaken, the mark of the plural, the three strokes. So it's
Mhm.
definitely not talking about the place. Now, if they were slick, they would have said, "Oh, he's talking about Israelites." But they
Mhm.
said he means Israel, and he doesn't mean Israel.
Mhm.
So yeah, and once again, many times they have to go to Kemet in order to try to validate their history. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And at the end of the
Exactly.
day, even if you really spelled, even if you really talked about Israel, what difference does it make? But it's just not the case. It's just not the case.
Mhm.
And people should feel free. I mean, I was surprised. I can't remember which PhD it was, which Egyptologist that actually stated that, it mentions Israel. I'm like, you should know better. But I think the majority of Egyptologists would say, no, it's not talking about Israel. So our people could ask. Sometimes I tell our people, just go on some university website and look for some scholars. Their email address is usually listed, and ask them. Now, many times they'll be busy. Most of the time, they might not reply to you, or they might reply late, but some will reply eventually, and people
Mhm.
could see. But I know that many will not make that effort. They just believe, and that's it. Whenever they
Mhm.
hear someone saying something that goes in the direction of their belief system, then they're happy. It's validation, and they are comforted. You know, I mean, back then you have some people. I don't want to say names. I want to be diplomatic, but we have some people, you know, with Kemetic names talking about, allies in Egyptian texts, you know, um, and Cain and Abel. That's like, Horus and Seth or some stuff like that. I mean, trying to appeal to the Christians, and we just don't need to do that. Let's just deal with the facts. Let's just deal with the history, you know.
Mhm.
But over the years, I've been hearing so much. Unfortunately, you hear so much more falsehood and inaccuracies than actual, facts, and that's why it's so important to know the language. I mean, it's no
Mhm.
secret. I've started learning the Hebrew. You know what I'm saying? Because I want to get to the bottom of some stuff. And anyway, that's something I wanted to do for a long time. But then, I had some issues with, a lot of Pan Africans, and the mother of my child who stopped me from seeing him. I had to go to the legal route and stuff like that. So I kind of had some a lot of time wasted, because of some effort of people who don't like when you deal with facts. But um, if people deal with the languages, they will be less fooled. You know what I'm saying? Because
Mhm.
it's the things we hear is just, it's just ridiculous. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. Oh man.
Agreed. Agreed. I agree. Thank you for letting me come up and
Oh, no
fellowship
problem.
fellowship with you. I certainly appreciate it. We'll get out of here and get myself something to eat.
Yeah.
Hope
Okay.
hopefully I said something that somebody heard that made some sense to them and may change the way they think, or may implore them to go and do some research.
Brother, if we were balling, people will come by the flock. And it's sad. It's sad. If we were balling, people are like,
That's
yeah, I
this
want to
is
be down. I
true.
want to be down with Kemet. But they're so numerous. They have mega churches. You know what I'm saying? And there are
Hmm.
a billion, on the Christian side and the Muslim side. So and that matters as well. But slowly but surely, some people will get on board. Some people will get on the program.
Indeed, indeed.
All
All
right.
right,
Well,
thank you.
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for coming in.
You're welcome.
All right. What's up, sir?
All right, on Simpson.
So you see, brothers and sisters, it doesn't kill, to get on the panel. But and that's the thing that I lament as well. That's the thing that I lament as well. We have so many people who talk that revolutionary talk, the black power talk, and they won't even show their face. Or if they show their face, it's to validate the Abrahamic stuff. Now let me go through the comments. We don't have that many. We have inspired one who wrote Ethiopian Bible is 800 years older than the King James Bible. We have Soul Time that wrote, I wish that I could buy these guys a time machine because they are into the wrong things. They will not talk this. They will not talk this back in ancient Egypt. Per Ankh wrote, the writers of the Bible knew the origin of the biblical narrative was in Kemet. Let's be careful of how we articulate it because you know how they're gonna get at us. Early Christians took ancient allegory, myth, and symbolism and made it historical. They took from many different parts. It wasn't just Kemet. It's important to state that for the record. Now, Topcast wrote Ethiopian Bible is based on the Septuagint. So, brothers and sisters, should we call it a day, or do we have any people who want to get on the panel? If anybody wants to get on the panel, here's the invite link. Or feel free to leave your comments. If there's no more participation, I guess we had a good discussion. It's been 2 hours and 20 already. But if there are some people who want to learn the Medu Neter, Here's my email address. I'm looking for enough people to do a small group, so I will come up with a new time slot. From 5 to 10. If there's at least 5, then we can make this happen. But if there's less, probably not, because it's best to have some small groups, really. But I've been teaching the Medu Neter for quite some time now, and can really introduce you to it. And whenever you feel ready, you can fly on your own. It's no rocket science. It's not super easy because we're not dealing with the same script. When you learn a language that has the same script, and it's not that difficult. You don't have to learn the script. You don't have to learn the alphabet. With the Medu Neter, there are many glyphs, many symbols, but it's not something impossible. But the people saying it hasn't been deciphered, that kills me. That really kills me. Well, it looks like we're going to cut it a day. Then there's no more participation. So thank you very much for being there, brothers and sisters. I will tell you, stay safe, stay healthy. And if I'm allowed to by the Necheru, I will definitely holler back at you. Hotep. Now, for the record, for those who don't know, I'm giving Medu Neter classes. And here, that's the flyer. Okay? So, those who are interested, feel free to holler at me. If you're not interested, it's cool. But I recommend that everybody who has not yet seen the video, Kemet and Ma'at, Before Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, then watch it. It has about 300,000 views and really deserves to have a lot more.
I just want to let everyone know who's listening in now and who's going to listen to this stream in the future. I just had my first Medu Neter class by Brother Shaka today, and I've had other Medu Neter lessons by other teachers, and I can tell you right now, the brother is the best in the game. He is that was one of the best classes I've ever had, ever. So if you're interested in learning the Medu Neter, if you're interested in getting the basics of it, Brother Shaka is an awesome teacher. Get with him, and it's extremely affordable. This brother is giving us his time and his skills, and he's basically giving it away. I mean, I just consider it a donation. You know what I'm saying? So if anybody's interested in learning the Medu Neter, get with this brother right here. He's an awesome, awesome, awesome teacher. And I'll end with that.
Hotep Senu, Hena Senut. This is Julie, also known as Servant of Yah, and I'm currently taking the Medu Neter classes with Brother Shaka, and it has been an amazing experience. Only 2 lessons so far, and I feel like I've been taking the classes for months, just with the how in depth he goes into the vocabulary words, the construction of the language, the grammar. It's been immeasurable, the experience. And one thing that comes across, hands down, is his extreme passion for teaching this to anyone who is willing to learn and has an interest in learning. So I highly suggest, if you are interested, even a minimal interest, that you subscribe to the classes with Brother Shaka. It's such a nominal amount for how much you get. I know, like, our last class was over 2.5 hours. It felt like 2 minutes, but because that's how involved you are in what he's teaching and how he teaches and how compassionate he is about what he teaches. Also with sharing materials free of charge, no question, no doubt. It's just what he does. He doesn't have to, but he does. And so I just wanted to give a short testimonial about the class and the effectiveness of the class, and all of that is attested to how studied Brother Shaka is. So I highly recommend anyone with a minimal interest that you do sign up for the Medu Neter class. Hotep.
Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, which is Ma'at Forever. Don't forget to watch the video entitled Kemet and Ma'at. Don't forget to share Kemet and Ma'at on my channel on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, or other social media that you use. Email, text messages, you name it. Those who wish to donate can do so on paypal.me/ma'atforever.